Say what's up. If you're on TikTok joining us, this is Two Guys Take on Real Estate. You're looking at one half of that right now. The other guy's behind the phone, behind the camera. We're setting up to go live right now on YouTube. So we're going to be doing just like we've done every week for the last couple of weeks. We're starting to learn how to do this YouTube live thing. So we're going to be over on YouTube, helping out our YouTube subscribers. Our numbers on YouTube are growing. We're going to be answering questions as they come in on our YouTube platform. So please, if you still haven't found us over there, TikTok people, find us on YouTube. You can find us by clicking the link in our bio, the Stand With Me link. That'll get you over to our YouTube channel. And you can tune in to Two Guys Taking Real Estate for our YouTube live session where we're going to be answering a whole lot of questions on the topic of rents, how to do rent increases, should you do rent increases, tenant retention, all that fun stuff. The market in general, as it's always changing, and some best practices you can have. So if you're thinking about house hacking, if you're younger and you're thinking, I want to buy my first house, live in it, rent out the other units, these are some of the things you're going to need to know. And you know this guy, let's get him on camera.
Let's get me on, exactly.
That's right, lean in, get close. I don't do it. Yeah, get close. I don't smell that.
All right, guys. All right. So today we wanted to talk about what's kind of going on in the market, specifically about rents. And we've been seeing in our units specifically, rents have been going up, right, dude?
Well, they have, because we've been taking a lot of steps to make sure we follow good practices to do rent increases and rent adjustments as needed.
Right. But, I mean, we're also seeing in general the market just allowing for more rent increase.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you got to make sure you're adjusting to the market as it changes and always doing the best thing for your business.
Right. So what are the reasons and factors you think that is happening right now where rents are going up? What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, a number of things. I mean, first, you want to always maintain the practice of gradually adjusting your rents, usually upwards in your properties, to account for a lot of things like the city constantly cranking up property taxes, for instance.
Yep.
Water and sewer bills going through the roof. They sprinkle in all these extra fees that an owner has to deal with, like trash removal, for instance.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that will cost the owner of the property, the landlord, more over the course of the year that a tenant lives in it. The rising cost of everything, gas went up. I mean, landlords got to make repairs to things. They got to drive to the property.
So inflation in general, basically. What you're talking about is inflation.
Sure.
And that, I mean, there's been talk about, inflation has increased quite a bit. Obviously you've seen it in the housing market as far as like house prices year over year. You're seeing close to 20% in that. But there was a report just talking about rents increasing year over year last month of 8%, which is huge.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do our best to make sure, we keep our properties adjusted to what the market demand is and what the market will bear for it. Sometimes you want to make sure you don't overcharge too.
That's true. I mean, so yeah, where are the times that you want to consider, increasing rent versus not increasing rent? What are some of the factors that you want to, as a business owner and as a landlord, to take into consideration?
Well, that's a great question. And for the folks on TikTok, I see some comments scrolling through, but we aren't watching the TikTok feed. We are actually taking questions from the YouTube live stream. So please, if you're still on TikTok and you haven't found us over on our YouTube live platform, please check us out there. You can find us by clicking that Stand With Me link up in our bio there. So adjusting rents, do you want to adjust them up, adjust them down?
Well, yeah. How do you
figure that out?
Exactly. How do you make that business decision? What are the factors to weigh when looking at that? Because I think that's, a lot of people I see that they're buying houses right now, duplexes, 3 families, and they're like, great, rents are going to be going up. We're seeing massive things. So I'm just going to raise all the rents. Is that a good thing? Is something that you should really bank on when you're buying a property, or other things you consider?
I wouldn't say bank on really anything like that when you're buying a property. I mean, who knows what might happen next week, next year. Prices might start eroding and dropping and going down. Oh, our screen just went off.
That's okay.
What I would really suggest is, analyzing a little bit more. If you're renting and you have units filled, evaluating what kind of tenancy you have going on. If you have a good tenant versus having a bad tenant, right? And everybody knows there's all these bad tenant horror stories. They're always fun to talk about, but a lot of tenants can be actually pretty decent tenants. There's a lot more responsibilities than simply paying your rent on time that a tenant would have. So if you feel you have a very good tenant, one of the things I would say is weigh off how much it would cost to lose and maybe have to replace that tenant, and then decide how hungry you are to do an increase. because an increase could lead to that good tenant shopping around.
That's true. And then, I mean, think about vacancy loss and now factoring that into your cost, because once that person moves out, typically, unless they kept it in mint condition, more likely than not, you have something you have to do, whether it's changing the carpet, sanding the floors, putting another coat of poly, another coat of paint, especially if they've been there for a while.
Right.
So now you're going to have that cost of doing the turnover. So let's just say if you were generally profiting, let's say $200 a month on that unit, and you now have to spend maybe $2,400 to turn it over and pay someone to do it, materials, which have all gone up, as we know. And now you're losing also maybe a month's worth of vacancy.
Probably more, because don't forget, you're not going to know really what kind of work you need to have done to that apartment until it's back in your possession.
Right.
So if somebody moves out at the end of the month, so the beginning of the new month, you're now looking at the property. Maybe you don't go over there for the first couple of days. Maybe you're a larger owner, you have several properties. And then you look and you say, wow, I need to contact this contractor and that contractor. And, contractors, we all know, are completely available all the time.
Exactly. They're just waiting for you to
sitting around. No, I mean, sure, you call a contractor, they can schedule a time. It's going to take some time before they can even get started on the property.
That's true.
So it could go from getting a contractor started, getting the work done. Now the apartment is in great shape. It's painted. It's ready.
Yep.
And then what do you got to do? You have to show it.
You got to market it.
You got to market it. You got to list it. You got to show it. You got to take a bunch of annoying. You ever try to sell something on Facebook? How many people? Wow, right? So there's some time there. There's some headache there, and then you show the apartment, hopefully to a good tenant who's going to do the right thing, and give their old landlord what?
30-day notice or something like that. Yep.
So they're not moving in tomorrow. If somebody is like super desperate and needy to move in tomorrow, maybe there's some reasoning for that. Maybe they're getting kicked out of their old place, right? So it could be a lot of things.
That's true. Right now, I think we're also seeing, which is nice, is that there's actually low amount of inventory for rentals. So there might be actually an abundance, which is also why rents are going up, an abundance of renters that are looking for something. Maybe they sold their house because the market is crazy. So while
maybe
they're waiting,
quickly looking to move,
well, they're looking to move and they're like, all right, I sold my house, but I don't want to buy right now in this crazy market. I want to maybe rent for the next 6 months to a year and then buy when hopefully the market crashes or changes or whatever they're considering.
Right. There's a lot of reasons. There may be a lot of people out looking. So the idea is hopefully they can move in kind of soon, but basically it could be a couple of billing cycles before you actually do have somebody in there leased up with a key paying you for your for their new apartment. So that's a lot of loss.
Exactly. And so, all right, you're hoping maybe you're getting $200-$300, whatever it might be, extra. More.
That could be a big increase depending on how much you spend.
Right now we're seeing massive increases. Like I said, certain markets are different, obviously. Especially where a lot of people have been moving out of certain areas and moving into new markets. Those markets are seeing obviously a higher rental appreciation.
$300 a month more, kick them out. Let's go. Or raise that rent.
But now you're looking at all right, $300 extra. Let's just say we get $300 extra, we're spending.
That's still very high. I would say your rent increase is probably still going to be less than that.
Most likely, yeah.
Let's use the numbers of 3.
Right, but now let's just say it takes it's $3,300 cost of turning it over, maybe a month of loss of rent, but maybe it's more. But that right there is 11 months to basically, so you're getting hopefully the extra, $300, but now it's taking 11 months to actually recoup that.
Your break
from
even.
That, from your break-in. So you need to at least rent it for a year. If they only rent for one year, basically you lost.
Yeah, you went through all that extra work for really nothing.
When you could have just kept that current tenant there, maybe bump them up $50, $75. And maybe did a little, offered them some paint so they can paint it or do something else to make them feel comfortable and happy.
Spot on. If you're worried and you want to balance out the concern of losing that tenant, weigh out the loss, the cost, the time, the headache, the extra work. If you're a mom and pop, you're doing this stuff yourself, that's a lot of extra work for you. Maybe just do a very modest increase on the existing good tenant. Maybe and you know what, you can still have the conversation with them and say, listen, Bob, you've been renting for me for a long time. You're a great tenant. I like working with you, but I just want to let you know, I've only been charging you $1,000. Everybody else renting these apartments right now, they're getting $1,300 for these apartments.
Right.
I can't keep losing $300 a month renting to you. I do want to keep you, what can we do, and come up with a number maybe together that maybe get them to pitch you the rent increase price.
Sure. And maybe they'll ask, well, I'd definitely be comfortable paying a little bit more, but is it possible I can get, whatever, new cabinets or I don't know, a fresh coat of paint
Sure.
or new carpets, or hey, could you really, I'd like some upgraded light fixtures, maybe swapping out the light fixtures to a fan because hey, it gets hot in here in the summer, or whatever it might be.
Yep.
You kind of weigh those things. That's like fine, all right. So really paying an electrician if you do it right, and then also the material cost. Wow, it's going to cost me a couple $100. I'm going to have this tenant stay there versus having that $3,000-$4,000 turnover to get an extra $200-$300, but I'm now actually going to keep a tenant there and get an extra $100 or whatever it might be.
So not just that, but the money you're spending is staying in the property that you own. You're investing money into your own property. You're making your property better, more marketable, worth a little bit more, depending on what you're doing. Maybe part of that is a kitchen or a bathroom remodel. You're sprucing it up. You're doing some work. You're making tenant happy. They're paying for it by staying for the next several years, hopefully, with an increased price. And the money you spent went into your apartment. It's not like you bought the guy a TV or something and he's taking it with him. So that's a great strategy to retain good tenants while also being able to adjust your rental pricing to accommodate for market values.
Real quick, we have a couple questions. I just also want to kind of, guys over here on TikTok, if you could, we're actually going to be answering questions over here on YouTube. And so if you want to go check the link in our bio, there's a link to our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you guys over there. It's where you can ask some questions over there, and really appreciate it. So if you guys go check us out.
So yeah, Aaron had asked, what are we talking about today? We are talking about rental properties, rent increases, and rent adjustments, and the market change of rental pricing in general. And Karen Thompson, what's up, Karen? Thanks for tuning in and saying hi. Thanks for this information. We're glad to help out. All of our video content here on YouTube and even on TikTok is completely free. So if you're a YouTube subscriber, but you haven't found us on TikTok, find us. It's the same name. It's Two Guys Take on Real Estate.
What?
And TikTok, people, if you're still trying to stream this over on TikTok, come over to the dark side on YouTube and check us out. We'll answer your questions on our YouTube screen, on our YouTube live channel.
Awesome.
Thanks.
So one thing that I've also been hearing about is, and I know I hear you talk about it all the time, I know you work a lot on it, is these programs that are here for rental assistance, often called RAFT in our area, and maybe it's something called differently in different states.
Lots of money out there, rental assistance world. Yep.
But I'm hearing a lot of the actual states are still holding on to that money. They haven't actually distributed. I think like California, where they were talking about like only 8% or 10% of the actual amount that was allocated has only been actually doled out to tenants.
That's not surprising to me. That's not surprising.
So why is that? What is going on? I mean, you actually do this firsthand. Can you tell us a little bit more about the process?
So it's an odd psychology behind this. And I'll tell you, it's not that surprising to some people, but some people may take a second here for you to understand what I'm going to say. So we actually had a bunch of issues with collecting rents during the Corona reaction, where they slapped an eviction moratorium, and landlords weren't allowed to actually charge and get paid for get charged for their services anyway. And so knowing about these programs, there is so much money out there to assist people, to divert people from going to be into homelessness. I mean, there's a lot of funding out there. No matter what state you're in, there's a lot of help for people.
Which is actually ending in like a week. So July 31st right now, the CDC orders end state across states. Now, every state's going to extend it here and there, but for the most part, it's ending.
So I will tell you, we would approach people constantly that hadn't paid their rent. They were falling behind because it was really well talked about. I mean, one person actually told me, well, the governor said I don't have to pay, so I'm just not paying you. And I said, wow. I mean, wow. So I'll get into that. That's a whole other rant. But what I did say is that, listen, there's a program. You can access this program online. So if you're actually too scared to go out in public and whatever with the pandemic stuff, there's no reason you can't participate in this program. It takes 15 minutes to apply online. They're approving really anybody that claims that they were negatively financially impacted by the program, by the pandemic. And they're assisting with cleaning up any unpaid rents, any past due rents. The problem was, we didn't have a lot of our tenants that were behind on rent, that weren't paying it, didn't use this program.
They didn't
use it.
Why?
Well,
it's
know
free
why?
money, right?
Yeah, it's free money, but it wasn't that big of a deal if they paid their rent or not. Why is that?
There was no consequence.
There's no consequence if they didn't pay their rent. The only reason some of these folks were paying, because if they didn't, they would get in trouble. Same reason, people sometimes don't steal from stores, is there's a security guard there watching them, or a camera or something, right? It keeps people honest. So having a consequence, potentially getting in trouble and getting evicted, if you didn't pay rent, was keeping people paying. When they took away the requirement for people to pay, people just weren't paying. And even when they said, hey, just go down to this office or go to City Hall, or in our case here, very local program, very easy stuff. Apply right online on your phone. Takes 15 minutes. Yeah, maybe I'll try to do it later. I don't know. I'll talk to my husband. I'm about to go get my nails done. I don't have time. Whatever it was.
Your nails are very nice. By the way.
Not my nails. If anything, I'm going to get done. It's going to be the nose, right, people? Anyway,
we would appreciate that.
It would take up less screen space. But anyway, so once we were able to start being allowed to collect rent, and as soon as we were able to start sending out 14-day notices, which here in our state is the beginning of a very long, but it's the beginning of an eviction process, people started applying more and more and more. Some people were applying. We were pestering people.
Yeah.
We're calling them, we're texting them, we're emailing them.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Sure, we were doing everything we could. But man, as soon as a consequence started being imposed, in other words, they got kind of a nastygram from us, and boom, they started applying for these funds. And then since then, people have been applying for funds like crazy. But the problem is, in some states, perhaps like California, a lot of landlords probably still can't apply, can't push forward on an eviction.
Interesting. That makes sense. So, are we hoping that after the CDC order is going, that this might actually still come through, or what? What are the hopes for these people? Obviously,
I got to say, and I know this is an unpopular opinion with a segment of our community out there and in the world, but if it's non-payment related. From times during the pandemic, there's almost no reason anybody, with the amount of assistance that's out there, should ever lose their home, their apartment, their rental at this point for non-payment. It's so easy to access money, and there's so much of it out there.
Wow,
that's bonus money. That's on top of the money they were getting if they were actually financially impacted. By the way,
right?
We're talking stimulus and unemployment and all that boosted money and all that.
Correct. So I guess so. So we're hopes that we actually saw some people getting how much? Are we talking, $5,000, a couple $1,000s? Really, like how big? How much was a family able to possibly get?
Oh man, you're gonna throw your phone through the wall when you hear some of these numbers. So I don't know what I should be sharing. So it used to be it was up to $4,000. This program, and again, we're in a state that does an awful lot for people socially, and so a lot of our tenants would regularly use this program. You could use it once a year. They're using it every year, like clockwork. After their tax money ran out, they would then eventually use this program, and they could get $4,000, which is not a small amount of money. If you're renting an apartment, that's a pretty good chunk of your yearly expense right there. They upped it and they upped it and they upped it. The biggest payout I think we had gotten so far was somebody. Am I going to give real numbers here?
No, we're not naming anyone's names, but I'm just curious. Honestly, I think some of our audience might be curious about how much really can people get. Some landlords might. I'm not sure if we got landlords on or we got tenants on.
Oh yeah, if you are a landlord, drop a comment in the chat, especially on YouTube Live where we can see it. We can't see the TikTok live feed. By the way, TikTok people,
get over here on YouTube.
Find us on YouTube. Click the link in our bio. Come to YouTube so we can see your comments and questions. So let's talk about that. How much money we've had a lot of households collecting. Should say not collecting. The money does not go to them. Thank God. The money gets paid on their behalf to the landlord that they're in debt with.
Well, in a sense, it does go to them. It's their balance sheet. They owe the money. So, one way or another, the landlord will try to collect eventually.
Man. Stimulus money was going to them. Boosted unemployment money was going to them. And it wasn't going to, should be their main expense, one of their main expenses, the roof over their heads. And it wasn't. So
I agree.
So $10,000 was very normal. We were hitting $10,000 balances on people, and the state was just wiping it off.
Wow.
Our biggest one to date, I think, was I want to say 25, actually.
What?
I want to say 25, maybe 25.
Wow.
Yeah. And you don't even want to know, should we tell them what they do by profession in that house?
No. We don't need to go into that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So they're giving money.
Wow.
They're giving money to everybody, guys. These people. Yeah. What kind of car did he drive?
We don't need to go into it.
What kind of car would he have parked outside the house?
So what questions do we have here on YouTube?
We got a lot of stuff on YouTube, on our YouTube live stream, folks. If you're on TikTok, we can't see the comments that far away. We are working with the YouTube live people today, so please click the link on our bio and come over and say hi. Do you guys invest in Texas? We don't. Or in California. Yeah, we're looking to, do things in a lot of places now and expand a lot, but we're really Massachusetts.
Yeah, currently focused in Massachusetts and Connecticut primarily.
Yeah.
We are obviously looking at other states, especially as market changes, and we are looking into more out-of-state investing, which it can be a great way if you have a good team in place. So we are looking to partner with some other good people out in different states to do that. But
there is a great question on there. We have to ask this. This one I think is directed to this gentleman. The Lone Polar says, "How was space, Jeff?"
It was fantastic. You schmucks.
You never had me. You never had your car. Give him a Vin Diesel. Give him a Vin Diesel one. No, that's a Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
No?
Nah.
All right.
So what's got? What kind of...
Everybody wants to know about the car.
Really?
Lone Polar, you got it, man. Yeah.
Yep. That's true.
Yep. Rimmed up 6 Series. Pretty nice, actually. Good for him.
So do we have anyone else who's interested on, do they have any tenants currently? Are they handling any issues on here on YouTube? I would love to know what you guys got. See if we can answer any questions. Maybe Kevin can talk to you about how he actually, works on the process. And it's not as simple as just, hey, tenant, go apply.
Yeah.
Kevin spends a lot of time working with the caseworkers because these programs were actually put to local housing authorities. And then they were the ones dealing it out. So it wasn't just like the state specifically. The state got the funds. The state then handled it down to these local, overworked, housing authorities where they only had a few people on staff for the most part. And then they would these caseworkers would work with, have maybe, 20 or 30 clients. I don't know how many.
Yeah, some of them had a lot. And again, it isn't a process that happens necessarily overnight. The hardest thing was, as we found, was getting the people to actually apply and become part of that process. What I would hear the most, I would follow up, and what I would hear the most from some of our tenants who had balances is, well, I applied, I don't know. I said, okay, well, just so the next step in that process is somebody from that organization will contact you. They usually call you by phone and then do an email. And they're like, well, no, I haven't heard anything. I'm like, well, did you, get an email? Oh, I don't really use my email. I'm like, so I'm like, well, it's been a whole month. They usually call you within a couple of days. No, I don't know. Nobody calls me. I always answer my phone. I'm like, all right, well, $15,000 in unpaid rent, right? Like you don't want the water shut off. Like you're not even paying enough money to cover the water bill. Like your trash collection costs. Like, you want the lawn mowed. Maybe you could call them. I don't know. Shoot them a follow-up email. They're trying to pay $15,000 on your behalf, guys. Get after it. So, constantly coaching.
Right. Coaching and us being the squeaky wheel because honestly, certain people, not all, but didn't really, but they feel they didn't have the time or they feel they didn't have the knowledge or they felt like, oh, I already did what I was supposed to do. Well, no, this is free money for you. You need to chase it, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
You just don't. Otherwise, it gets especially often with these caseworkers. Like we were saying, some of them have 50 clients, so they might not get to it for a while. But if you're the one that they keep hearing from all the time, they're going to put you on the top of the pile. Yep. Just get you off their headache.
Yeah, the organizations, the state, the mayor, these people, they're not going to be the ones being proactive for you. They're not going to be the ones knocking on your door saying, please let me, please, let us help you. Take our money. You know what I mean? You have to actually, go forth and work towards it. But so at least in our state, like I said, primarily Mass for us. Yeah. But every state has all sorts of different funds and programs for it. But what we found is people weren't actually embracing it and applying. And that's why they still have all these people out there that are in danger of eviction because you haven't actually allowed the landlord to start collecting. The second we were able to start collecting, the second everybody started applying.
Oh, the other thing is some of these smaller landlords maybe couldn't even, they're losing their house. They didn't even have time. They were trying to figure out their whole situation. So, there's a lot of small landlords that own 2 or 3 units maybe. And they just, once they stop paying, because it didn't happen, obviously over time that COVID's in the last year or so, they can't survive often for, a few months. They were living, when you talk about living paycheck to paycheck, their paycheck was the rent. And so they were literally barely surviving, especially if they're house hacking or something like that. Yeah. They might have had to move on. They might not have been able to really handle it.
A lot of them will make, ultimately, make the business decision to do the same thing that the tenant is doing. The tenant is being told, hey, the landlord can't do anything. They can't kick you out. They can't make you pay for their services. And the landlord's like, you know what, fine. I owe $200,000 on the house. The house is worth $200,000. Just, I'm not lifting a finger for this person. Let the bank take it when they want, you know? Yep. And they just walked away from it and went on with their lives.
There's definitely been some of that.
So I will tell you, there's another way in which supply for rentals has shrunk while demand for rentals has grown. And that's a lot of landlords chose to keep their apartments vacant.
That's true.
Instead of renting them.
Exactly. Why? Well, no, that makes sense. Why take on a tenant that maybe won't pay?
Right.
And therefore, and you can't evict and you can't actually collect.
Right.
And then they're still going to damage it. They're still going to take your services. And so therefore, I'd rather just leave it vacant potentially at that time and just wait until everything blows over, where I can actually have my rights as a landlord to actually, collect what is due, the service I provide, and then collect for that.
Why in the world would you want to supply a service and provide a service for somebody that you can't collect and pay for? Why would you? Right. I would say, no, I'm just going to leave the place empty.
Well, it's like a grocery store opening, and you can't collect. You can't take anyone's money. You need to provide them all the food.
Yeah, you can't even tell them to go through the self checkout. Like, if they want to just walk out the door, you can't stop them. And you have to stay open and let them in. Right. And God forbid, they don't like any of the product you sell. They can complain. You might have to help them.
They have a slip and fall?
Yeah, they have a slip and fall, or you have to actually show them where the stuff is, what aisle, whatever.
So you're paying someone to actually show them stuff. And,
yeah, absolutely.
The shelves.
Yeah, stocking the shelves. So, I mean, absolutely, a lot of landlords are just choosing not to rent, and it's very understandable. So that definitely contributed to fewer apartments being available.
So we have a few more questions here.
Wow, look at them all.
Aaron, I just bought my first flip house. Any tips? Well, I hope it was a quick flip because the market, at least in our area, is definitely softening. And so I hope you bought with the numbers right and you can get it done quickly, because I would hate to see you get caught with it when the market does fully shift.
100%.
So that would be something I would be worried.
BD's got a great question. So what I'm hearing is choose your tenants better as owners. Well, it's not really a question, but it's a great comment. And I will tell you, the amount of tenants that weren't paying rent that had no reason to, well, a lot of people didn't have reason to, but they were subsidized tenants, guys. We have a lot of subsidized tenants, Section 8 tenants, where the government requires them to pay up to 30% of their income. Now, most of their income is also given to them by the government. SSI, disability, welfare, all the different ways in which the government gives them money. And 30% of that goes towards the rent. So if the rent's $1,000 for the apartment, maybe the tenant shares, we'll say $300. I don't know. Right. And they just weren't paying that too. So they're definitely somebody well qualified. The government pays a chunk of their rent. The government then gives them money that they're then supposed to pay the rest of their rent with. And they never had an interruption on that. All hell would have broken loose if Social Security and disability and welfare and everything else weren't getting paid out during this Corona time. But yet they also chose to not pay for a year and a half. So they were very well qualified.
Once again, some. I mean, I'm sure some people were impacted. I mean, maybe their family member, they had a secondary income or.
Yeah, maybe.
Once again,
with Section
everyone's
8,
situation's a little different.
Don't forget, with Section 8, their rental portion adjusts.
True.
So if they did suffer some kind of financial loss, their portion goes down, reactive to that. So really, theoretically, they would have had a zero portion.
Potentially. Okay, gotcha.
So in that case, it doesn't necessarily always work. But yeah, so I mean, on paper, choosing your tenant, which is you have to treat everybody equally. You can't just kind of eyeball somebody up and down and be like, he looks like a bad guy. They're certainly financially qualified.
BD, though, I completely agree. I think screening your tenants is one of the most important things in general to do when you have a rental property. Starting the eviction process essentially starts from the inception of your tenancy. You want to set the right precedent. You want to make sure you've done a good job. And once again, it's not just to protect yourself. It's also, you don't want to, no one's here. Like Kevin's famous line is, I'm not here to evict people. I'm here to rent apartments out. That's what we're here to do. We're to provide a housing for, good people, good homes, so to speak.
Dude, evicting a tenant is the last thing a landlord wants to do.
Heck yeah.
I swear to God.
It costs us so much money.
Yeah, even aside from the human element, which I never want to see somebody and have an adversarial relationship or see somebody lose their home. I mean, most folks will absolutely bounce and land somewhere just fine.
But still.
But business-wise, terrible. Nobody wants it. It's a huge loss to do it. It
costs so much time too, and the amount of time you spend on it, you could be working on so many other benefits.
Yes. What you're doing when you're evicting something is you're stopping the bleeding. It's like the It's like the 127 Hours movie there where the guy cut his arm off. I mean, that's literally what you're doing. You're like saying, "Oh my God, this is just You're making the best of a bad situation. Right?
And often you're also poisoning the bunch. So, for instance, if you have a 4-family and one's not paying, often there's other behavioral issues as well that go along with that. That's why it's so important to really pick your tenants really well, because now all of a sudden you could lose 2 other good tenants. Now you have to spend the time to get this person out. You just lost 2 other great tenants, and now you're down to 25% occupancy.
Yeah,
that hurts.
When it comes to bad tenants, it's more than just the vacancy, downtime, or the non-payment situation. He said it right. It's poisoning a whole property. It's going to drive away, bad tenants will drive away good tenants, and that's very, very pricey.
Yep. One of the things we found so many time and time again is generally when you have a 6-family or 16-unit building, whatever it might be, often there's 1 or 2 people causing 90% of the problems in that building.
Yeah.
And once you can actually hone in on who that tenant is and get rid of that tenant, all of a sudden the property either becomes off your radar and it's like, wow, wait, what? I was spending hours on that a week. Now I'm spending hours on it maybe a month just for collections and just general maintenance. This is great.
And to bring it full circle back to the topic, which is rent pricing, the rental market in general, that will allow you to be able to afford less rent on the property. So you could choose to keep good tenants by not adjusting their rent up as much as you would if you had a property full of problematic tenants.
Oh, sorry, one of the questions is getting pulled away. So let me see it real quick for you again.
Sorry, we're clicking some buttons here.
So here you go. I got the question at the bottom there. So, I didn't realize it did this. Go ahead.
So any things that you were not expecting when you bought your first rental property? Wow. Everything. We've seen, I like to say we've seen everything, and then a week goes by and we've seen something new. I guess I wasn't expecting the level. And again, I think it's going to depend on what kind of type of property you're working with and location and stuff like that. But, the level of interactions you have to spend with some of these apartments. It's not just, they pay the rent on the first of the month every month and, you don't ever see them.
Yeah. Our first tenant that we had together was Section 8, and we had heard the whole thing where great, it's guaranteed rent, all that kind of stuff. We were super excited. This tenant had a 5-bedroom voucher, so we're like, holy moly, we're going to get major rent. And we did not really understand this person. Whatever reason why they didn't have a job, they had I think freaking 7 kids or something to that effect, and essentially the amount of maintenance we had on that property was insane because all right, my grandfather was a plumber, and I always talk about the story. He still has the same toilet he's had for 60 years.
Sure.
No problems.
Sure.
Like he maybe had to change the flapper once in a while or something like that and fill out. We went through, I don't know how many toilets in like 2-3 months, like that G.I. Joe stuck down it. Toothbrushes, we've had steak dinners down toilets.
The blue rocks from the bottom of the aquarium, all down a toilet.
Why?
It's crazy. But also, the wear and tear a property is going to go through when you have a family that has lots of kids in it and maybe an adult or 2 in the household who never leave. Like these, it's not that, they're off to school and work and whatever and out being productive with their day. They're home all the time. So these guys were just home all the time, putting a lot more wear and tear.
I mean, our water bill was much higher than it should be. I mean, just in general wear and tear. And that was the biggest thing. A lot of surprises. And I mean, we talked about the one big surprise from our first tenant that I never ever heard at the time. It's changed a little bit. Was they had a child they called there.
Oh man!
I'm just saying
we're gonna do this.
Yeah, we're gonna do it.
We never heard this term before, but they were introducing us to their kids. They're counting, and it was like so and so and so and so and so, and then that's my cap baby over there.
Cap baby. I'm like
cap. CAP.
I wasn't sure if it was kind of slang or what was. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Turns out it was the baby that they're capped on their extra income for
benefits and all that other
stuff
crap.
Like that.
Yeah,
I was like, Wow.
So the state at that point had capped off, at least again in this state, had capped off after you get to your 17,000th kid. I don't know what it is. They're like, okay, no more extra benefits for you in your household to go up more.
Oh, they got rid of that. So
they got freaking rid of
that. No
that.
more cat babies. Let me take the second.
Have at it, folks.
Right.
What's the rent? The website for the rent assistance, it's going to be different in different places. Here, it's through wayfinders.org. That's just our local nonprofit that distributes state funds from all the hardworking taxpayers out there going towards clearing up all the rental balances for people that claim they were affected. Should you look out for when choosing a property manager? Wow, yeah.
Bald guys like this.
I'm just going to say, I don't know. Disorganized. I would say some kind of either a bad temperament. They don't seem like like personable or comfortable handling tough situations.
Not systemized. That was the biggest thing. I think systems. I would actually recommend asking to walk through their office, understand how they process things, understanding how they're processing eviction. Ask them kind of list out their sequence of events. And who's handling what.
Give them some pop quiz and some basic misunderstandings.
How they handle emergency calls. How do they handle these common things? How is our work orders handled? What about, if there's an issue with snow removal, how is that handled? I think that's the biggest thing I would say from a good property manager. They're going to have really good systems in place. Yeah. Even if they've been around for 30 years, that does not mean they have good systems.
100%.
So really check. I mean, so I recommend that. I'd also recommend that you ask what kind of property management software. That is a system that really helps them be organized and efficient for you as their client.
Well, and that's going to take me back to what I said before. When we first started out, we had our first 2-family house here at Two Guys Take on Real Estate.
Yep.
I sought out the advice of somebody who has 1,000 units and a very well-respected guy in the area, and asked him some advice. He gave me the best piece of advice that he probably could have, and I'm passing on as well, which is to use great property management software.
Yep. And we ignored that.
We promptly ignored that advice.
Wow, we were smart, right?
Well, no, we were broke, and there was a big difference. Property management software at that point, pretty expensive stuff.
Well, yeah, it was back then. Yeah. I mean, but there's some great stuff out there now. I mean, we use one of the more higher end software.
Yeah,
so
we use stuff for the bigger guys, I guess. But if you're starting out, if you're house hacking, if you're a new investor, and you just picked up your first property, you have just a few units.
Yep.
We actually have been meeting and working with the folks over at Rent Ready. Give them a check out, I would say.
Yep.
I think there's a link in the Stand With Me link over on our TikTok bio.
Which is also in the description of this video if you're on here on YouTube.
Beautiful. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely check it out. There are some great there. It's great for people just starting out up to about 20 units. So highly recommend checking it out.
It'll also be great to, again, staying on topic, help you know when to do rent increases or rent adjustments. I love to do rent increases, but don't forget it's also important to know when to do rent decreases, or at least have a conversation with your tenant when your lease is expiring and say, listen, this is a $1,200 apartment. I've still got you at $1,000. I can keep you at this price for a little while longer. I just want to make sure you're aware of it. At some point, this might have to change. Make sure they always know that every time the lease is over, if they want to negotiate new terms, it is a negotiation of new terms.
True. Now, how actually, so kind of talking about rent increases and stuff like that. I know that at least in our market, Section 8 rent increases are handled differently than if their tenancy is done at the middle of the year.
I still don't know if I've figured it out.
Okay,
it's different from agency to agency, guys, and Section 8 programs seem to differ quite a bit around the country from what I've seen and talked to from other folks. But here we have a few different types of Section 8 programs. So even here in our market, there's like several different types of Section 8 programs that are administered also by multiple places, a nonprofit place and a state housing authority. So they all have different rules about how to handle that kind of stuff. They have different forms. So I would say it's something you have to kind of be on top of. In our case, in one of the programs, you really have to jump through a lot of hoops. It's only 60 days. You can have to do it before it's 60 days before the end of a lease term, and then you can only adjust it if they to a price that the agency thinks is fair based on their review of the areas, up to maybe 3%, or they maybe cap it at an increase as well. And if you miss it 1 year or miss it by a day, you're done. You can't do it until you get to the next year. And at that point, you can't increase it like even 6% because you didn't increase it last time. So things get very, very weird with that stuff. Best I could tell you is get familiar with the programs before you embrace them completely.
Yeah, make sure you talk to the caseworkers in those programs and help understand how it works so that you can actually make sure you don't miss those rent increases, especially if you're depending on that to really help your
absolutely. And, for folks too, we would get the response back from some tenants saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing an increase. And I'm going to tell you a quick story during a pandemic. And I would say, listen, all of our costs have gone up so much during the pandemic. I don't understand why you think that that's like the one thing that can't be adjusted. It cost me everything more. Everything costs more.
Insurance has gone through up. Taxes, because all the house prices have gone up. Oh my God, it's crazy. They increased our water bills by what was it, 20% or something like that?
Yeah.
Water bill, electricity's been going up. Labor cost is ridiculous. Material cost.
Got to fix something. Good luck financing a 2x4 these days. I mean, it's bad. It's real bad.
Yep.
But let me tell you just a quick example of somebody we did a rent adjustment on. I'm going to say rent adjustment because this was not an increase. So plot twist. Spoiler alert, not an increase. All right. So we have this person. I forget exactly the numbers. Let's use some kind of round numbers here. $1,500. They're renting a really nice single family house. Nice. Now, with our single family houses in our state, if you can make the tenant be responsible for the cost of the water and sewer, but the water and sewer bill stays in the owner's name. The owner basically turns around and invoices the tenant for their usage. Okay. So we priced the apartment at $1,500 with water and sewer separate, so not included, meaning they'd have to pay those utilities, just like they'd have to pay gas and electric for heat and hot water and everything else.
Okay.
What was happening was these people were, we were able to keep them at a zero balance, and pretty good on us and good on them for doing the right thing, keeping their balance paid. But they weren't paying their water bills, and they were actually racking up a lot of water usage. So we're talking $200 a month in water bill costs. I mean, it was high.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And they weren't paying them. Now, you'd think, listen, if they're supposed to pay it and it's part of their lease, evict them. Because, we got to thousands of dollars in unpaid water bills sitting on their balance. So you can't. You can evict them for non-payment of rent, but you can't evict somebody because of some other fee, like if they broke a window and they didn't pay the repair cost, that type of a thing. So here, that's how it worked. We basically, best case scenario, could take them to small claims court and get a judgment against them. But again, don't forget, if somebody could be what's called judgment proof, they don't have income, or they don't have income that you can ever garnish, like a job, for instance, and they probably never will. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to go through all that extra effort to get a judgment against somebody if you're never effectively going to be able to utilize that judgment and collect. So
we have a lot of wasted paper here.
we do.
Many trees killed by these darn judgments.
So what did we do? Well, we said, listen, we have to adjust. Your lease is expired. If you'd like to continue renting the property, I guess that's fine. We don't want to have a huge turnover, a lot of vacancies. So we said, listen, they
were paying the rent.
They were paying the rent. Yeah. It was a little bit of pushing and prodding, but there was getting done.
Yeah.
And they were off the radar otherwise, single family house. So we sent them an email and we said, listen, here's or we sent them a document, I forget, but it was real simple. We said, basically, you're going to go from $1,500 a month with no water and sewer included to $1,700. Oh no, maybe it was $1,650 a month with water and sewer included.
Right.
So effective such and such date, August 1st, you're going to go from $1,500 rent for the property to $1,650 rent for the property. But now we're going to be having some stuff included. The water and sewer is going to be included. They stopped reading after they saw your rent's going from $1,500 to $1,650. They skimmed it. They stopped reading. It was a very simple, short paragraph, plain written, and they flipped the heck out. Oh my God! So they started emailing us back saying, "How dare you?"
Oh yeah, during the COVID,
during the pandemic.
Yep. Oh my God. Yep.
What are they going to do? They're going to call the I-team to investigate the news. They're going to tell the mayor's office. Everybody's going to hear about this. And we're going to court in the morning and all this other stuff.
Slumlord.
Calling us all sorts of names.
Yeah.
And so, we gave it a day. And we wrote back. And we were like, dude, go back and read slowly. So your rent was $1,500. Your average water bill was $200 a month. We actually are giving you a cost of living decrease. It's actually costing you less to stay there now. by making it $1,650 for you, and it's that much easier because you just have one bill each month to pay.
And it saves us the headache of trying to chase you out of that off to that money. So,
right.
Yeah.
Now, you might be saying to yourself, why in the world would you lower the cost of somebody who you're kind of pissed off with because they owe you thousands of dollars in unpaid water bills? Well, it goes back to what I said at the beginning. You can't evict them for the unpaid water bills, but you can evict people for unpaid rent.
That's in Massachusetts.
Every
state might be a little different.
So we were able to create a scenario now where if they don't pay the rent in full, the $1,650, they'll actually have some consequences. And guess what? They're paying it.
There you go.
go.
So Lone Star has a good question.
Awesome.
Lone Polar. So what can you do to get them out if they cause many problems? So it really depends on your state. So every state's going to have different laws, whether it's be a non-payment rent issue or a for cause. I think one of the biggest things we liked is make sure you have a really good solid lease to start with.
Sure.
That's basically kind of clarifies what the other stipulations besides just rent that they can have. So they're not allowed to have a pool maybe or a trampoline.
Smoking.
Not allowed to smoke. Everyone's situation can be a little different, but you want to make sure you're very clear and upfront with each other so that you have a meeting of the minds at the starting of the tenancy.
Big time.
Exactly. And then depending on your state, obviously, if they're violating those other issues, that's when you would then start to evict or work with your lawyer or whatever it is in your general area to go the next steps. Also, if they're breaching quiet enjoyment, so if they're causing problems for your other tenants, you're responsible to actually step in as the landlord to make sure that your other tenants are actually taken care of as well.
I thought that was something that people actually really knew in general, very much knew. But we posted some videos way back in the day on TikTok, and I was really just shocked and amazed at how many people thought it was none of the landlord's business if a tenant's doing such and such, as long as they paid their rent. And I said, it's not only your business, it's literally your responsibility. Yep. It is your business. If you have somebody that's leaving trash all outside of the property, which is very, very common thing, a bad behavioral sign, you have a responsibility to deal with that issue because it's going to create some real problems for your neighbors.
All of a sudden they're going to have mice or cockroaches or other things that are going to come into their house. And now they're not, comfortable, and they're getting, bit by mice at night or whatever. We had that little kids.
Absolutely. And because you know that it was going on and you did nothing about it, you're literally negligent in your responsibilities. And now the good tenant that's a victim of the bad tenant's behaviors and your lack of doing anything about it has a very good, strong, easy, legitimate gripe against you, financially, especially.
So I think that one of the biggest things I would do is making sure you're documenting everything. Mm-hmm. I think that would be the key to starting any problems. And I think that would pretty much go across any, state lines. You should always document everything that you're doing. And that's why we also work with some great vendors. So we, for instance, talking about pest issues, we actually work with a local pest company, and we have them go out on a quarterly basis. And if there's any problems, within those 3 months, basically they can get, they'll come right back out. So the tenant just has to report it to us. We have it on our 800 number, and they can report to us, and we send, our company out there. This way it's all documented. They talk about their cleanliness, were they prepared, often taking pictures.
They take pictures, they leave notes. I mean, the whole thing. And I've gone back when I've gotten a tenant claiming, when I'm evicting them because they haven't paid rent for the last 3 months, and they say, well, we've had bugs and mice and everything for all this time and all this other stuff. I can go back and I can pull, four sheets a year from this tenancy and say, wow, look at, they were there this date, this date, this date. You've never once reported this issue to us, yet we've had people out there servicing it to prevent you from having a problem. And all their notes talk about your sanitation being horrible.
Exactly. And especially, at least in our state, when we were going in front of a judge to say, hey, we need to evict this person because they are not meeting their responsibilities, the minimum responsibilities, and they're impacting their neighbors. Right. And we then provide them with a third party's report. Yeah. That goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, most states will have a law like ours does say it's the landlord's responsibility to keep a pest-free property, and it absolutely is. But any reasonable person, a judge, for instance, will realize that somebody is contributing to that being a problem, having a pest issue. So you can provide them all the stuff that you need to be able to show them, listen, you've been doing more than what, you've been exhausting your efforts to do the right thing.
Exactly.
And it's been this person specifically that's been causing the problem. So documentation, as Matt said, what can you do to get them out if they cause any problems? Document the issues. the more you pay attention to your properties, I call it on the radar. If I've got a property that's suddenly kind of on my radar because we're noticing issues, we're getting complaints, I start making it a point to make sure that myself or somebody is stopping by that property very regularly and making sure we're very visible, that the tenants know that they're getting a reaction, that they know that the landlord's around and involved. If there's something going wrong, like I smell smoke when I'm standing on the porch of the property, knock on the door. Hey, listen, it's a non-smoking.
Well, and also what we'll do often is if one person's reporting something and we do see a problem, we send notice to everyone. So if it's a 16-unit building, we're not just pinpointing this at one person because we don't always know.
No, we don't always.
But we also want to make sure the person complaining sees that we're actually handling this seriously by them getting a notice as well. You know, they're seeing that we're not just being negligent.
Absolutely right. That's exactly right. We send notices out. We'll post notices. So again, they're visible at the property, and they'll get much more follow-up. And honestly, you'll catch other people with bad behavioral issues, having the same thing. So if it's a trash thing, again, a sanitation thing, a lot of people will take their trash, put it out, just leave the bag on the doorstep at their back door, which of course will attract bugs and mice. And you'll see me knocking on one door after another as I see that at the property, saying, hey, listen, this isn't okay. Here's why it's not okay. And here's what I need you to do going forward. It's a coaching moment for every single tenant. Bad tenants usually that expect that it's fine to live in those kind of conditions, et cetera, will usually kind of start moving on themselves. They don't want to live somewhere where they're going to be held responsible for stuff all the time. So they'll probably start giving you notice and telling you how much of a bad landlord you are, and they're leaving. And you say, oh, gosh, so sorry to hear that you're going to go.
So, all right. So I think that kind of wraps it up for today. We'll be going live again next Monday. So if you guys have anything you'd like us specifically to talk about, leave a comment in this video of what you'd like us to talk about next week. And if we get enough comments, we'll make that the topic of next week.
Yeah, we'll do our best. And make sure, guys, if you're over there on TikTok, make sure you find us by on YouTube Live by clicking the link in the bio. A lot of other cool stuff in that link, so look around while you're there. And check us out and subscribe to our YouTube feed. YouTube followers right now, if you're watching and you haven't subscribed, or click the thumbs up button, hook us up, help us out a little bit, grow our channel, and we'll be back with a lot more to come. Thanks.